Good morning and welcome to Cutler's second Cybersecurity Concerns webinar. We appreciate all of you joining us today. My name's Matt Patton. I am the CEO here at Cutler, and I'm really pleased to introduce Jessica Alvarez, our Vice President of Operations. We had a great turnout for the first Cybersecurity Concerns. This time, Jessica's going to be talking a little bit more about contemporary items, things that are happening today, as opposed to general help and background data. So, Jessica, thank you for joining us today. We have recorded this so that people can watch via our website later. And if you have questions as we go through this presentation, please feel free to put them in the Q&A box at the bottom. I will answer them, or Jessica will answer them as we go through this presentation. And at the end, we'll unmute everybody and give you an opportunity to ask any questions that you may have. So with that, Jessica, I'll turn it over to you, and thank you for joining us today.
Okay, great. Thank you, Matt, for that introduction, and thank you all for joining me today as well. I know everyone is busy, but I appreciate you taking the time today to log on and or call in to learn about some current cybersecurity concerns and how you can stop or at least deter your information from being exposed or hacked. So let's get started. Of course, like any good compliance officer, I have to start with some disclosure and disclaimer on what I'm about to present. And for those of you on the phone who can't see my screen, I will read the full disclaimer to you. It says, the information, analysis, and opinions expressed herein are those of Cutler Investment Group as of May 23, 2017, for general and educational purposes only and are subject to change. Nothing contained in this presentation is intended to constitute legal or regulatory advice, nor a solicitation of any type. And the purpose of this presentation is to give you some information and tips on what you can do to help protect your information. At Cutler, we take cybersecurity very seriously, and we have our own ongoing, extensive, and thorough internal training program on cybersecurity in addition to what I'm going to share today. So if you would like more information on our own employee cybersecurity training program, feel free to email me or your advisor, and we will send you over an overview on the steps we are taking to protect your information from cyber attacks. But for today, this information is for you as our clients, and I hope that you find it informative. And I would also like to say that today's presentation is by no means an all-encompassing cybersecurity lesson. I could spend hours and hours talking about cybersecurity tips and all of the different software available and still not cover everything there is to know because it is so broad and constantly changing. But little by little, if I can just keep giving you tips here and there and make it so that you are always taking cybersecurity into consideration whenever you're online and on your mobile devices, I think that that's a step in the right direction for us all. And we will continue to do these client seminars on cybersecurity because, as I mentioned, there is just a mountain of information out there, and it's always changing. And there was always a new hack concern, and I myself am always learning new tips. So I feel it is important for me to continue to pass along the information I have to you on an ongoing basis. All right, so enough of that. Let's get into the meat of the presentation. The focus of today's webinar is on privacy. This is a primary concern for us as your investment advisors, but I know it is a main concern for you as well, not only about your financial information and making sure your assets are protected, but also protecting your PII, or personally identifiable information, in all aspects of your life. Okay, here is a quote that I heard while I was at my 3-day compliance conference earlier this month. And for those of you on the phone, the quote says, "Older Americans are very bad at privacy settings." And this was said by Owen Donnelly III, who is Chief Counsel in the Office of Investor Education and Advocacy at the SEC. And when I heard him say this during his keynote speech, I wrote it down because I thought it would be a nice starting point for this particular presentation that I knew I had coming up and I thought it was great because it gave me an out on not being responsible for actually saying this myself or thinking it. This way, I'm just a messenger passing along the opinion of someone who I think is a pretty reputable source on the subject. So during his speech, when he said this, of course, he got a laugh from the audience, but he was also serious about it. He said it's just a fact. And he wasn't saying all older Americans, and he didn't even really clarify what constitutes older. But the fact of the matter is that he had come to this conclusion during his line of work that just older Americans are very bad at privacy settings. So, how private is your information online? Sure, you have a Facebook page and may post personal information on there, but only your approved Facebook friends can see that, right? And yeah, okay, maybe you filled out some sweepstakes form with your name and address for the chance to win a new car or a lifetime supply of Colgate white strips, but that's not public information, is it? Well, have you ever heard of TruePeopleSearch.com? Let's just take a look here. I'm going to pull this up. And this is a totally free and public website. And what it is basically a data aggregation site that pulls in all the information it can find about someone and puts it in one neat package. Perfect for hackers and scammers, right? That's so nice of the good people at TruePeopleSearch.com to do that for us, free of charge and without us asking. So for my example today, I'm going to use Matt Patton, which you all know Matt. He's the CEO of Cutler Investment Group. He gave me that great introduction at the beginning of this presentation. He's just an all-around stand-up guy. But most importantly, he is one of the most tech-savvy people I know. So let's see how much information about Matt the TruePeopleSearch.com algorithms were able to find. So I'm just going to type in his first and last name here, not even his city or zip code or anything. And we'll search, see what we find. All right, Colorado, no, that's not him. Ohio, no. Utah, Washington, Jacksonville, Oregon. That looks about right. Fifth from the top. Bada bing, bada boom, I'm in. And before I delve into all of this information, in full disclosure, I did ask Matt's permission to use him as an example in this exercise, even though I technically didn't need to, since, as I said before, this is a free and public site and all of the information is there for anyone to see. But I thought it was probably in my best interest not to blindside my boss and blast all of his personal information to our clients without him knowing. So, having said that, let's move on to see what we can learn about Matt today. First up, home address. Yes, that is 100% accurate. Now you can all add Matt to your holiday card list or stop by and say hello unannounced. Thanks, TruePeopleSearch.com. All right, landline. Yes, that is correct. This 512 number, it looks like an outlier, but that was actually an old phone number from when he used to live in Texas. So they were spot on there. Let's move down to addresses. This one right here is interesting. That's actually where Matt's Rotary meets. That's so weird. How did they know? Okay, well, click down here and view all addresses. Irvine, California, yes, that is correct. Lakeway, Texas, again, correct. Tucson, Arizona. This one seems random, but it actually is correct. It was his wife's address while she was at law school at the University of Arizona. Go Cats. All right, moving on. Okay. Finally, the algorithm failed here. He has never actually lived in Virginia, so I guess Matt gets the last laugh on that one. Moving on. Okay, this one down here is my favorite. This was actually his senior year dorm room while he was at Boston College back in 1997 and 1998. And this was before the heyday of the Internet where everything was in electronic form. So they really had to go and do some digging for this one. I give them props for that. Possible relatives. Okay, I want to stop here and talk about this one for a little bit because these are all actually relatives of Matt. And this is actually really useful to scammers. So what scammers will do is look at the relative names on this list and cross-reference them with other records on truepeoplesearch.com until they can figure out who are grandparents and grandchildren in relation. Then they will call the grandparents saying that they are one of their grandchildren, and of course they're able to provide details to verify their identity because they have, addresses, phone numbers, previous addresses, etc. So the scammers will call up these unsuspecting grandparents, pose as a grandchild in need by saying something like they're traveling and they need money and they don't want their parents to know, or maybe they got into some trouble in Mexico and ended up in jail and need bail money, or something like that. And then they get the grandparents to wire them money, and boom, they've been scammed. So that's just one scary thing that I've read about these websites. And let's just finish up here. Business associates, yes, these are all mostly correct. They even got the connection between Matt's ex-brother-in-law's parents. So that's pretty deep down the line that they can get. And just so you know, to get your information off of this site, which I'm sure Matt will be doing after this presentation is over, you go to the privacy button down here, click that, and then you can go and click this link here where it says for record removal requests. And that does work because I actually did it with my own record that was on here a couple weeks ago, and now everything is erased. But just because you erase it from this site doesn't mean it's erased from the original sources that this site is pulling this from. And also, this isn't the only data aggregation site out there. There are many others, and they have all the same information as this one.
And as a reminder, Jessica, for those that have called in and they're concerned about how to get to the privacy removal, this will be posted on the web, and you'll have a chance to watch it. Or feel free to reach out to Jessica, and she can talk you through how to get that done.
Yes, that's correct. Thanks, Matt. Okay, let's get back to the slides now. So the point of that exercise was not to scare you into thinking that your identity has already been stolen and that there is some hacker out there already using your information to rack up thousands of dollars of credit card debt in your name without you knowing it. No, I mean, the information they had wasn't devastating to Matt. They didn't have his Social Security numbers or credit card numbers or anything. But I just wanted to use it as a reference tool to show you just how much information is out there on you and from sources that you may not even consider or think about. So next, we're going to get into some tips on how to protect your data and your information and make it more private. And the first thing we're going to talk about is encryption. Encryption is a fast and easy way for you to mask your information from potential hackers. Encryption basically takes your data and scrambles it so that only authorized users can access it. I've heard it described as sending a postcard versus sending a letter in an envelope, or you can think of it as translating your data into a language that only you and the end recipient can understand. So encryption just makes your information a little bit safer when you're sending it and when it's idle. So when implemented properly, encrypted data could take a hacker billions of years to crack based on sheer brute force attacks. This is because encryption codes use complex mathematical algorithms and long numerical sequences that are difficult to decrypt. And a brute force attack, just so you know, is a method used by a hacker to try as many combinations of passwords or encryption keys until the correct one is found. And it's usually carried out using software to scan through the combinations. However, with encryption, there are different varying types and levels of encryption, and they're measured in bits. And the higher the number of bits an encryption has, the harder it is, in theory, for a hacker to crack it. So I'm not going to get into the weeds on how encryption works and how many bits you should have for your software. Just for this presentation, I want you to know that you should encrypt your data, and the first thing you should do is encrypt your cell phone. So for most of us who have an iPhone or Android operating system, our phones should be automatically updated with encryption. So Apple introduced device encryption back in 2014, and Android started requiring it in 2015. And for iPhone specifically, as long as you have the operating system updated, your phone should be encrypted already. assuming that you have a passcode on your phone, which if you don't have a passcode on your phone, meaning you enter a passcode or fingerprint when it's on the lock screen to access all of your data and your apps, if you don't have that, put everything down right now and do that. You would go to Settings and then Touch ID and Passcode and click on Turn Passcode On and enter a strong passcode or password. And if you attended my previous cybersecurity webinar back in December, I went over some tips on how to create a strong password. You'll want to use a combination of letters, numbers, and symbols. And remember, the longer the password, the better. But still, you'll want it to be something that you can remember. And if you have the ability to do fingerprint sensor, enable that as well. So once you had your passcode turned on, you can check down at the bottom of the screen and it should say Data Protection is enabled, or AKA your device is encrypted. And with Android, it's basically the same thing. You go to Settings and Security, and there should be an encryption label that will say that your phone is already encrypted, or it will give you the option to do so. And even if you've done this before, if you know that you've encrypted your phone, I would just encourage you to double check that your phone is in fact encrypted. For instance, I have an Android, and I recently updated to the newest operating system, and as I was checking out the new features and updates, I went to the lock screen and security and saw that there was the option to encrypt my phone, which I thought was strange because I know I had encrypted it with the previous operating system, because at Cutler it is a requirement for all of our phones to be encrypted, and we have a software that scans all of our phones and mobile devices and tells us which ones aren't encrypted, and mine had passed the test last time, but I guess maybe there was a bug or just something random with my phone when it updated to the new operating system that it wasn't encrypted anymore, so I had to go back and do that again. So long story short, it's a good idea just to double check to see if your phone is encrypted. And if any of this isn't immediately obvious to you, your cell phone carrier can definitely help you out and make sure that your device is properly encrypted. All right, the next thing, so while encrypting your actual device is a good step in the cybersecurity process, that only helps protect your information while your phone or tablet is locked. Once you enter your passcode or scan your fingerprint, that is the key to unlocking your data, and so it's no longer encrypted once you open your phone, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to see any of the information. You can go a step further and actually lock certain apps within your phone and require a password or passcode to open those. But for most of us, that is not necessary because we aren't worried about other users accessing certain apps if they already have access to the entire phone with the passcode or fingerprint on the lock screen. So the purpose of the device encryption is to stop or at least deter hackers from getting our sensitive information while our phones are idle. It's a good first step, but most of us will also need encryption on the messages that we send and receive. Some of the most popular email and text messaging apps do have some level of encryption built into them, like iMessage and Gmail, but it's always a good idea to check on any app that you use to send messages. I know some, like Outlook and Facebook Messenger, have advanced encryption settings, which are free, and you should definitely use those, but you actually have to go into your account and enable those features to get the benefits. And if you're in the habit of emailing private information or your job requires you to do so, you might want to look into an add-on with a high level of encryption for your attachments. At Cutler, we use ShareFile extension for our attachments within Outlook. If you've ever received an application or account change form from us, it probably has been through the ShareFile portal, which we all use to send documents that have personally identifiable information on them. And if you're using a less popular email or texting app, I would really definitely look into the encryption and privacy settings on those, because it does cost money and resources for these companies to have advanced encryption coding in their applications, and some of these smaller, lesser-known apps just aren't going to have the resources or capabilities to do that. And so if you're looking for a good email or messaging software, The two examples that I know are the most critically acclaimed for end-to-end encryption are Proton Mail for email and Signal Messenger for text messages, just if you're looking for something to switch to on that. All right, next. All right, privacy settings for social media. Chances are you probably use social media. And if you've never navigated to the settings screens to update your privacy controls on these, I will just tell you this, your profile and most of what you post, like, comment on is probably public. I know that even I get confused in the matrix of Facebook's privacy settings, which seem to allow for more and more customization each time they update it. And actually, speaking of the updates, even if you were good and did all of the privacy setting controls back when you started your account with, Instagram, maybe back in 2014, and you've never gone back to check on anything new in the privacy settings, chances are you're not as private as you think. Because every time the app updates, it has a chance to change their privacy settings along with adding new content. So I would just make sure that you go and check on that. And if you were on my last cybersecurity webinar, you know that updating the apps is a good thing because they are usually patching security breaches along with adding new features. But it also means that they may or not be updating their privacy tools, which could impact your previous settings. So I encourage you to check on your privacy controls for every social media site that you use to make sure that you are only sharing information with the people that you intend to share it with. Also, make it a habit to recheck the privacy settings after each app update to see if there are new features and to make sure your settings haven't changed. Also, a little advanced bonus tip here, check your app permissions on your phone or tablet and make sure they are only using what they need to use. There is no real reason that every app needs to access your contact list, and unless you're constantly posting to Facebook Live or doing voiceovers for YouTube, there isn't really any reason that I can see that these apps need access to the microphone on your phone. A lot of the times these apps will ask for a broad swath of your device's information in the initial download, but you can usually go in and turn off permissions for most of them. And that's a trick that I just learned myself about a month ago. All right, moving on. Right now we're going to move on to the WannaCry ransomware attack. And this event was a worldwide cyber attack by the WannaCry ransomware crypto worm, which targeted computers running the Microsoft Windows operating system. The attack started on Friday, May 12th, and within a day it was reported to have infected more than 200,000 computers in over 150 countries. Part of Britain's National Health Service, Spain's Telefonica telecommunications company, Germany's railway company Deutsche Bahn was affected, even FedEx, along with many other countries and companies worldwide. So this was a big thing. And also, just a side note to toot our own horns here, Matt, our trusty CEO, whose senior year dorm room was located at 80 Commonwealth Avenue in Chestnut Hill, Massachusetts, which we learned earlier. Well, Matt, as soon as he was informed of the WannaCry virus that afternoon, he made preemptive security measures with our IT department to have our servers shut down for the entire weekend starting at 5 p.m. that afternoon. And at this point, we didn't know how the attack worked or who or what was vulnerable. Later, we found out that our servers weren't vulnerable to the attack in the first place. But at that time, we didn't know that, and he thought it was better to be safe than sorry and initiated the server shutdown as a safety protocol. So I just wanted to give a shout-out to that for Cutler's cybersecurity plan in action. So with WannaCry, what actually did happen? See here, and here, for those of you on the phone, I have an image here of ransomware and kind of how it works. And this was a ransomware cyber attack, and that means that the virus, or in this case, the WannaCry worm, finds a vulnerable computer to infect. In this case, it was initially by having a bot search for computers with a vulnerable SMB port, and then later it was spread by phishing emails sent to unsuspecting victims who clicked on the link and downloaded the virus into their computer. So once the virus is in the system, it encrypts, good thing we know about encryption now, all the data, making it so that you can no longer access your files or drives. Then the program puts up a screen demanding that you pay money to get your access to your files back. Typically, the price increases over time until the end of a countdown when the files are actually destroyed, if you don't pay the ransom in time. In the WannaCry case, it was asking for about $300 to $600 worth of Bitcoin, which is a cryptocurrency that is not regulated and it's very hard to trace. And most of the computers that were affected did end up paying this ransom. And even though that doesn't seem like very much money, with 200,000 computers, that could add up to a lot. And so far, it says that the attack has racked up close to $100,000 in payments. So it's pretty lucrative for the hackers. For the WannaCry, as of May 19th, 2017, the attacks have slowed down and is presumed to be extinct, though isolated reports are still coming in from the countries that were already affected by the ransomware attack. Also, unconfirmed sources have also alleged that a newer and more powerful version of this particular virus will be released and infect the major computer systems all over the world. So we're on the lookout for a second wave that could be coming for this. So this was a big deal hack. So big that the SEC's Office of Compliance, Inspections, and Examinations, or OC, as they are commonly referred to in this business, issued a risk alert on the subject. Now, OC, just to give you a frame of reference, are the division of the SEC that examine us as registered investment advisors. So we, of course, are regulated by the SEC, but the people from OC are the proactive division that will actually come and perform the exams to make sure that we are doing everything in accordance with the rules set forth by the SEC and the Investment Companies Act of 1940 and the Investment Advisors Act of 1940. So usually their risk alerts, when they issue them, they have to do with new guidance on compliance rules for investment advisors or new exam initiatives that they will be covering. So to know that they felt it was necessary to issue a risk alert on the WannaCry attack, that is saying something about how serious this was. Because obviously if the hack was powerful enough to penetrate hospitals, railway companies, telecommunication companies, people wanted to know if it affected the financial industry. And luckily, most of the data is saying that the financial services industry had little to no impact as a result of this hack. And that came from an SEC seminar that I actually attended just last week with representatives from OC. They're saying that all of their research has indicated that WannaCry did not affect the financial services industry. And this may or may not be because the SEC, and particularly OC, has made cybersecurity a top priority for investment advisors and broker-dealers for the last few years. I know cybersecurity is always at the forefront of my mind during my day-to-day work online. And we at Cutler have been fine-tuning our cybersecurity policies and procedures with the latest information on best practices. So I guess we may have the SEC to thank for the fact that we were hyper alert to this news when it came out, and we were able to take those preemptive measures and alert our employees and shut down our servers so quickly. But of course, that doesn't mean that we're letting our guard down for the next attack. So what are some things that you can do at home to prevent a possible cybersecurity attack on your computer or network? One of the main takeaways from the WannaCry attack was that a critical patch had been issued by Microsoft on March 14th, 2017, to remove the underlying vulnerability that the virus exploited. So Microsoft released this patch nearly 2 months before the attack, but many organizations had not applied it yet. Now, it's a little bit more difficult for larger companies who are dealing with hundreds of servers and thousands of computers to constantly be updating their systems, and that is precisely what the hackers were betting on, and it worked. But you, as a single user with your home computer or laptop, should be able to install every update and patch as it comes out. Microsoft even has what is called Patch Tuesday, where the second Tuesday of each month they'll release updates to their operating systems, so you'll want to make sure that you catch all of those as they come out. And to make things even easier, you can have your computer set to automatically install updates once or twice a month. I'm always a fan of making things automatic when I can. Set it and forget it is a top motto of mine that I like to use. So installing updates is definitely a way to prevent a cyber attack on your system. The second thing you can do, if you aren't already, is run antivirus software. There are great versions of free software out there like Avast and Bitdefender, or for minimal cost, you can upgrade to their paid versions and get really robust scanning coverage that can catch any outliers on your system or corrupt files that may or may not contain a virus. And again, this is something you can and should set on a recurring schedule for automatic scanning. Set it to run at 3 a.m. every Wednesday morning so you can catch the updates from the Microsoft patches. Set it and forget it. Boom. Task accomplished while you sleep. And then, of course, just beware of phishing scams. Hackers are getting really good at spoofing big-name websites like banks and online retailers to make the emails look like they're actually coming from those sites. And they're also getting really good at spear phishing, where they will target you specifically by using your name or referencing your email address in the body of the email to make it look real. So if you receive a suspicious email and you aren't sure if it's real or not, I would suggest calling the company just to make sure. And definitely, if you are sure it is fake, do not click on any of the links and do not open any attachments. I've even heard of people knowing that this was a phishing email, but then they saw the little unsubscribe button at the bottom, and they clicked on that thinking that the hacker wouldn't email them again. And, of course, the unsubscribe link was the virus. So, again, if you know or even think it's fake, just delete it and move on. If it's important enough, they will email you again or even call you. Okay, that was it that I had for the content today. Final thoughts. Like I said at the beginning, my intention with these webinars is not only to provide you education and tips on cybersecurity, but to also just get you in the habit of thinking about cybersecurity in your daily lives. Just a simple pause before clicking on a link or an email, or making sure you check the privacy settings on your social media apps, could be the difference between being the victim of a cyber attack and not. And if you have any questions about this presentation or would like copies of the materials, feel free to email me or call me anytime. And a copy of this presentation will be up on our website in the next few days, so if you want to reference anything I mentioned today, you will be able to do so. Also, if you missed my first cybersecurity presentation back in December, a copy of that presentation will also be up on our website in the next couple of days, or you can email me and I can just send you over a copy as well. And lastly here, if it's going to come up, it wasn't loading before.
The future events?
Oh, yeah, I couldn't see it on my screen. Is it there now?
Yeah, we can see it. Don't worry.
Okay, so I wanted to mention some other great events that Cutler will be hosting this year. And this list is also available on our website, cutler.com, where you can also look at events for your specific region that you live in. In fact, tomorrow, if you're in the Seattle area, we hope to see you at our Starbucks Roastery event from 3 to 7 p.m. We'll be having food catered by Tom Douglas Restaurants, and we'll have the coffee experts at the Roastery giving talks, tours, and tastings on all of their different offerings of Starbucks coffees that you may not typically get to try in their retail stores. If you can't make that or aren't in the Seattle area, I hope that you find something on this list that you can attend, one of which I hope is my next cybersecurity presentation, which will be on November 7th. And if you have any suggestions on topics you would like me to cover for that, again, please feel free to contact me anytime. I would love to know what cybersecurity concerns you may have aside from the ones that I covered today. Okay, I think that's it for me.
All right.
Matt, did we have
Jessica,
any questions?
thank you very much. I'm actually going to unmute everybody, so if you are driving and don't want to hear the noise in the background, please mute your phone. But you are now off of mute, and I just want to see if there's any questions from any of our clients and friends that are on today. All right. Well, Jessica, I think you have either scared them into submission or we have addressed everything that they were worried about today. So thank you, everybody. Jessica, thank you very much. It's great knowing that we have such a good resource here at the firm to help our clients stay safe. And we look forward to doing this again, as you mentioned, on November 7th with additional information on what is timely at that point and maybe with some feedback from our clients. So thank you, Jessica. Thank you, everybody. As a reminder, we will post this to the website so that you'll have an opportunity to review it and maybe share it with your friends and let them know that Cutler is looking out for your assets. So this concludes our webinar today. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and we will talk to all of you soon.